I don't know if you realize this by now, but I love the Pikmin series like a brother. Between the flawless mixture of photorealistic environments with cute cartoony creatures, addicting real-time strategy gameplay, and characters that range from wholeheartedly endearing to comedically sociopathic, surely a franchise as meticulously crafted and cared for as this would have no chance of screwing up. Oh, you sweet, sweet summer child. While I love all 4 of Pikmin's mainline installments, I'd be lying if I said these games never had any moments that made me consider just burning all of this to the ground. While Pikmin is, to a certain extent, a survival series where you're expected to take some losses and march through the hardships, I think we can agree that a select few things go way below the belt. And barring that, just a few lapses in the usually high standards Pikmin sets for game design that don't sit quite right. I get that Pikmin is Miyamoto's pride and joy that he constantly pushes forward like an enthusiastic soccer mom, but parents can make mistakes too. It's just that most mistakes aren't this lethal. So I bet you're expecting something super infamous to kick this off, and don't worry, we'll get to those in a moment, but I want to start with something I don't really see other people complaining about. The usual targets for lists like these are intentionally difficult diggish enemies or scenarios that players end up hating for being annoying or frustrating, but I'm fascinated when the same reaction comes about for the complete opposite reason. Instead of the game screwing the player over, the game is trying so hard to accommodate you that it becomes grating. Everyone watching is familiar with the long-winded, overbearing tutorial, or teammates that feel the need to shout out every little thing till you have a migraine. Like, I appreciate you want to help, but God, let me breathe. I was really tempted to include Pikmin 4's first few days for just how slow it is as the game constantly holds your hand and keeps halting any momentum to teach and reteach you information, despite this being Pikmin 4, but hey, Pikmin 4 is a pretty long adventure, so that sluggish start ends up being easy to forget. I wish I could forget about Pikmin 1 seed respawning. I get what the creatives were going for. One of the most important traits that plants have is their ability to live on and reproduce with the seeds that get scattered about by things like wind and various animals. And to help add to the idea that Pikmin are part flora, they also have the survival technique. When a flower Pikmin dies in the first game, there's a decent chance they'll leave behind a seed that'll grow into a Pikmin sprout the next day you visit. It serves as a means to cushion you after a messy day, which is already weird considering Pikmin 1 is pretty comfortable with letting players stew away in their failures and telling them that, yeah, you kinda fucked up. But it's also a pretty inconvenient cushion. The new sprouts are always where you lost loyal soldiers the day before, and because most of the really dangerous enemies and hazards are pretty far away from base and often on the farthest ends of the map, it means you either end up going way out of your way to pluck, or going about your business with a reduced number of Pikmin since those sprouts count as part of your 100 Pikmin limit. Either way, you're giving up efficiency, and that's kind of a big deal in a game that necessitates efficiency. I guess I could have gone easier on this, but it's incredible how much this seemingly helpful mechanic gets under my skin whenever I replay Pikmin 1. Thankfully, this can be just chalked up to first game syndrome since the series hasn't brought back this mechanic since, and I hope it stays that way. I can handle myself, I promise. I've got very little bad to say about Pikmin's various battle modes. They take the series' core gameplay of strategic multitasking across a wide area and successfully adapt it into a competitive PvP setting with objective-based chaos. It's like League of Legends, but adorable, and with way less slurs. This is easily some of the most manic fun I've had with any of Nintendo's multiplayer, and I'm almost glad Pikmin 4 didn't have online Dandori battles or you'd never hear from me again. It is mostly based on skill, but like Nintendo's other big multiplayer titles, there's also an element of luck in play courtesy of these big roulette wheels fueled by cherries and loaded up with all sorts of effects to either give you an edge or create a setback for the opponent. And you know, most of these aren't too crazy. You can grow a few extra Pikmin, give yourself a bomb, summon an enemy to distract your competition, and... Oh. Yeah, so in the spirit of cruelty, I guess, there's this one power-up that'll rain the opposing player with falling rocks that will insta-kill any non-rock Pikmin crushed by them. It sounds pretty broken, and that's the issue. If you get caught at the wrong time or just get really unlucky, there's nothing stopping the game from just squashing most or even all of your platoon flat, and at that point, the match is essentially over. It was probably meant to serve a similar purpose as Mario Kart's Blue Shell, but at least there it's exclusively used to take the winning player down a peg, and you're still fully capable of winning after it hits you. Boulder Storm, as it's called on the Wikipedia, is like if the Blue Shell blasted off 3 of your car's tires and didn't discriminate between players. Both players are equally capable of getting the item at any point, regardless of who's winning and how wide that gap is, and is capable of setting you back so far that there's no point in continuing. It's in all 3 battle modes across the series, but I have to give the dishonorable mention to Pikmin 3's version of it. The time between activating the item and that first boulder crashing down is so small that it makes me very sad inside. Put Pikmin 2 and 3's versions of Boulder Storm together and it comes out at least 3 times faster and is basically impossible to avoid unless you're already booking it in a straight line and don't stop for any reason. But I can think of a good dozen or so reasons why you wouldn't be doing that in Bingo Battle. It's just an insane item however you slice it and is fully capable of deciding who wins in the blink of an eye. Blue Shell, Chance Time, or Meteorite Bombardment. Give me a difficult choice next time. You might be surprised that I haven't brought up one of Pikmin's many enemies or bosses yet. And while you definitely would have seen a lot more if I extended this to a top 10, the truth is most Pikmin creatures don't offend me just because they've killed some of my troopers in the past. And really, I'm glad that's the case. Pikmin already has so many enemies you can either one-shot or kill with minimal effort with your purple Pikmin, or your dog, or butt stuff, I guess. So having a decently sized roster of tougher and trickier monsters is great for keeping things engaging and encouraging some actual tactics or creative thinking. So yeah, I like most of the enemies in these games, but even I've got my limits. If you could only pick one, I assume most people would tear the spotty bullbear apart for being this crazy bullborb on steroids that will hunt you down with extreme prejudice if you even get in the same zip code as it, and they have a point. It is pretty dreadful. In Pikmin 2. They were nothing more than a bigger, tougher bullborb in Pikmin 1 with all the same weaknesses in play, and the devs definitely realized how overtuned it was in 2, hence its various nerfs in the sequels. It got a second chance and became an actually fairly respectable enemy. The Gatling Grunks never got that chance. Some creatures just don't deserve it. It's honestly kind of impressive that in a game as stuffed with hated enemies as Pikmin 2, the Gatling Grunks are right up there as one of the most infamous of the lot. Much like the bullbear, these bizarre walking fish cyborgs will casually stroll around the area with no limitations and will insert themselves in any situation, regardless of your consent. And if they do, you'll be staring down the barrel of its mortar cannon. That shoots mortars. It's Pikmin biology, don't question it. What I am going to question, however, is exactly how these explosives work. Supposedly, they'll only kill Pikmin caught in the epicenter of the blast, but that doesn't really seem to happen in practice. It often feels like they'll spare your little friends when it looks like they're dead to rights, and just as often they'll somehow kill when it's clearly not a direct hit. Run-ins with these abominations are pretty much luck-based, and that would only be balanced out if they had lackluster health. You know, like a glass cannon. If it was a fish with legs. But no, they've got amazing health for a standard enemy, and have complete immunity to frontal assaults since evolution decided to mount a huge windshield on their face. Thankfully, outmaneuvering them is never too hard, and even if they pop up at an inconvenient time, they're not invincible to purple Pikmin beatdowns or ultra bitter spray, where at that point it's a relatively easy win. That's not always the case though, since sometimes they'll be on high up pedestals out of reach of your spray, and even your purple atomic bombs. Meaning you somehow have to bait the groink in a way where you'll get a good shot at its rear before it turns your way to light you up, and that is never a painless process. Oh, and it can somehow revive itself upon death if you don't dispose of the body quick enough, because apparently this steampunk looking ass goldfish needed more ways to be unique in the most obnoxious way possible. It's been 20 years since we last saw these freaks. Nature must be healing. So we've covered a diverse set of crap so far, but at least Pikmin gives you a reprieve whenever you're just carrying stuff back. Sure, the levels can be treacherous, the walls and bridges take ages to deal with, and every predator will want you over for brunch, but at least the simple joy of carrying back ship parts or whatever else you find was never tainted along the way. Except it was. Is nothing sacred anymore? You already know where I'm going with this, so let's take a couple minutes to talk about Pikmin 2's Doomsday apparatus so I can explain how it affects completing this game. Conceptually, I actually don't mind this. Purple Pikmin might be better known for other things, but their ability to carry with the strength of 10 Pikmin is still made very clear from the get-go and even gets a few cases of mandatory use. Namely the 2 globe halves that allow you to access new areas. Of course, I'm sure the dev team saw this and had an urge to take this to the logical extreme. They did, and boy do I hate it. The Doomsday apparatus weighs 1,000 units, which tells you right then and there that you need a full squad of 100 purple Pikmin just to bring this bad boy back. The problem is, the game isn't too keen on handing you a ton of these guys because of how broken they are. They're meant to be a luxury. As such, if you play Pikmin 2 with the intent to 100% it and comb through the first 3 areas to complete every cave while using every violet candy pop bud you come across, you would only have about 90 purples by the time you get to Wistful Wild. And that's if none of them die, which is very unlikely unless you're constantly resetting anytime you lose a VIP. Okay, so you have to grind for purples if you want this dumb dumbbell, and if that was the only catch, then that would be annoying, but almost tolerable. After all, the Emergence Cave is a 2-floor breeze that gave you 10 purple boys. That's the ideal scenario, but unfortunately, Pikmin 2 has other ideas. There's a check in place that prevents most violet candy pop buds from spawning if you have 20 or more purples altogether, and most of those also happen to be from the shorter dungeons where replaying them wouldn't be the worst thing ever. The most efficient grinding spot, as in what gives you the most purples relative to time, is the subterranean complex, a cave positioned on the opposite end of the Valley of Repose that takes a while just to reach. Once you enter, all you have to do is trek your way to the 8th subfloor where you'll be able to create 15 purples. After that, you'll leave and repeat the process till you hit triple digits. Somehow, that's the fastest way to grind up purple Pikmin. I did do 2 deep dives on my most recent playthrough, which took about 18 minutes. 18 minutes of mindlessly running past obstacles and enemies, looking for holes in the ground, watching loading screens, and only occasionally plucking those things I need to get that other thing that only exists because Nintendo felt like doing a little trolling. And I'm someone with prior knowledge. I don't even want to know how long this would take a first-time player not knowing this exists and where they're probably not hell-bent on losing purples. And your reward for all that? Watching your purples very slowly waddle back to base with this fucking weight. I can feel my hair turning gray, Pikmin 2. Would you kindly hurry the fuck up? Pikmin 4 pulled a similar trick with his gold bar, and guess what? It's way less irritating because the game actually gives you a purple onion that allows you to grow at a rate faster than cancer growth. Granted, you do have to play a bunch of side content to get it, but that side content is fun, and still infinitely better than forcing this monotonous grind that clearly has no respect for you or your time. 3,000 Pokos is so not worth this bullshit. Oh hi Pikmin 2, I didn't expect to see you again so soon. I almost feel bad. I really didn't mean for the back half of this video to devolve into a Pikmin 2 roast, but it's sort of inevitable when it has this many instances of, well, let's just be blunt, bad game design. I like Pikmin 2. I really do. It's my favorite Nintendo game that keeps kicking me in the dick. That's my official review of it, someone put that on the box art. And regardless of how I or anybody else feels about it, there's no denying all the good this game did for the series, including the dirty work of doing a bunch of things that didn't go down so well. Put it this way, Pikmin 4 wouldn't be quite as amazing as it is if Pikmin 2 wasn't there to show all the ways you don't make multi-floor dungeons. And the worst, most painful thing of them all? Yeah. You see how dumb that is? You see how stupidly cheap and aggravating this garbage is? I can stomach a lot of 2's crap. The electricity, the bottomless pits, even most of the enemies, but I firmly draw the line at all the shit falling from the sky. 2's caves come under a lot of fire for how difficult they can be, and how all these elements often feel unfairly smashed together because of how the game randomly generates floors, and I can understand that criticism, and I've certainly fallen victim to awful RNG in the past, but at least you can actually see what's ahead and do your best to plan accordingly. That all gets thrown out the window when a decent amount of subfloors decide to just spawn various hazards from above, you know, just in case the game wasn't tough and random enough yet. Don't you love it when bomb rocks, volatile dweevils, and massive insta-kill boulders fall from the sky? Isn't that just so fun? I mean, at least the spiders and the bombs give you a timer to get away. The boulders aren't so nice though, since they give you about 2 seconds to both recognize it and then get your entire army away from the shadow in time. And why stop there? How about some enemies drop from the sky too, where they'll just immediately start laying into your forces? It's kind of funny when it's a weak or harmless enemy, but no one's laughing when it's a Wollywog. Or maybe even a spotty bullbear. Yo, Almar, where in that Piclopedia did it say these guys go for aerial attacks? Just saying, you might want to update your data files. And you know, if it was only in subfloors where that's the only real thing to worry about, I could live with that. Think sublevel 5 of Subterranean Complex, that wasn't so bad. But no, that's the exception, not the rule. Most falling bombs and boulders will only show up in levels that are busy enough without them. 3 orange bulwarps and a bunch of dwarves. Is that enough? Nah, let's put in a baker's dozen of falling rocks. That'll make things interesting. How about these boss encounters with the segmented crabster and the Empress Bulborb spewing out all her bastard children? Wouldn't they be challenging enough on their own? Probably, but it would be a lot more fun if an avalanche came down every time they crashed into a wall. Seriously, pick out any floor that looks dangerous enough as is, and chances are it's got at least a few unpleasant surprises waiting from above. And sure, you can take your captain on their own to walk all over the place to trigger the traps and then go about your business, but 1, it's not exactly fun wandering around playing bomb detector, and 2, while you'll be able to bring out most of the hazards, you probably won't get all of them. So hopefully that last boulder or bomb doesn't spawn in at some super critical moment, otherwise, sucks to be you, I guess. Oh, and you know the developers knew this was an intentionally mean, cruel mechanic when there's a Pikmin 2 challenge level called Cave of Pain, where it's just a bunch of everything falling from the sky until you decide you've had enough Pikmin 2 for the week. No, you know what? No, this is perfect. 100% perfect. So perfect, I want it in the next game. Not only that, I want it to be the primary focus. Pretty soon they'll be calling it Pikmin 5 Armageddon. Pretty soon every game will be doing it, and suddenly, random insta-kill shit falling from the sky will be up there in the Hall of Fame as one of the greatest mechanics ever put into a video game. Right alongside the escort mission and the out-of-place stealth section. Is this what Stockholm Syndrome feels like? Am I genuinely crazy? What have you done to me, Pikmin 2? This has been Baleography, and I wish you all my very best.